A group of detectives sat in a car, preparing for a mission. Their plan was to trap a drug runner inside a crowded nightclub. They discussed positioning, debating who should be where. One detective reminded the others that it was a big job and urged them to stay cautious. Inside the nightclub, everything seemed normal. A dancer performed on stage while the crowd watched. Then the detectives received word that their target had arrived. They quickly left the car and rushed inside. Meanwhile, the dancer slipped off the stage and went to her locker room. From behind the clothes, she watched a man enter. Sneaking up, she stunned him with a taser, knocking him unconscious. She opened a bag beside him and discovered it was full of drugs. Without hesitation, she took everything. Unaware of this, the detectives waited for the drugs to be delivered so they could arrest the man. But when the moment came, the drugs were already gone. Determined not to lose their chance, one officer moved in to arrest him, but the man fought back. Soon after, the detectives realized the drugs had vanished. At the same time, the dancer who had stolen them sped away in a car with her boyfriend. Not far from there, a man named Tae Sik lived a quiet life, running a small pawn shop in a shabby neighborhood. That day, he had just bought a bouquet of flowers. On his way back, he crossed paths with So Mi, a young girl who often lingered nearby. He called her over. She came reluctantly, insisting she wasn't a thief. As they walked, she asked about the flowers he carried and told him about her day at school. Then, she asked if he could check whether one of her teeth was loose. When they reached his shop, he went inside, leaving her outside. Later that day, So Mi returned and asked him to take her MP3 player as pawn. After giving her some money, she noticed a few sausages on his table. Out of pity, he let her stay and share a meal. His shop doubled as his home, and the two talked as they ate. He asked why she needed money, and she explained she did nail art. Curious, she asked about the rumors surrounding him. People said he was a criminal, and her mother called him a predator. When Tae Sik asked what she thought, she teased him by saying he lived like a prisoner. Their quiet moment was broken when So Mi's mother called out from outside. Frightened, So Mi hid. To protect her, Tae Sik opened the door and told the woman So Mi wasn't there. Suspicious, she demanded he open the door fully. Thinking quickly, Tae Sik nudged So Mi's plate off the table with his leg so there'd be no sign of her. Then he opened the door. Before leaving, the woman warned him not to spend time with her daughter, threatening to kill him if he did. The woman was Hee Won, the same nightclub dancer who had stolen the drugs earlier. She had come to Tae Sik's shop to sell a stolen camera. After taking the cash, she told him he could ask her out if he wanted. Tae Sik stayed silent, so she left, insulting him on her way out. When Tae Sik returned after speaking with So Mi's mother, he found So Mi playing with one of the flowers he had bought, tucking it behind her ear. He snatched it away and scolded her harshly, telling her to stay away from other people's belongings. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a Chinese trafficker named Oh Yoon-ju slapped his subordinate Man-seok across the face. Furious about the loss of a large drug shipment, he made it clear he would not let it slide. Man-seok tried to calm his boss, assuring him that he knew who had taken the missing stash. Oh Yoon-ju explained how much had been lost and its worth, his anger boiling over. He gave Man-seok 3 days to retrieve the drugs, warning that if he failed, he would hand him over to organ traffickers. At So Mi's home, violence broke out. A man barged in and confronted Hyo Jung, demanding she return the stolen drugs. When she refused, he beat her mercilessly while So Mi watched in terror. Hyo Jung tried to argue for half the money, but the man reminded her their deal was only 20% and threatened to kill her if she didn't return the stash in 2 days. Mocking him, she said she could sell the drugs herself and disappear, but he warned her about the dangerous people she was dealing with before storming out. On his way out, he spotted So Mi and casually remarked that she is exactly like her mother, then left. Afterwards, So Mi approached her mother, but Hyo Jung ordered her outside. Left alone, she injected herself with heroin and collapsed in a haze of bliss. Unable to bear it, So Mi fled to Tae Sik's pawn shop. She tried to lighten the mood by teasing him, saying people called him the pawn shop creep. She admitted that others called her garbage, explaining that when her mother was pregnant and angry, she had kicked a trash can. That, she said, was why she was given the nickname. Hearing this, Tae Sik simply told her to get some rest and left the room. The next morning, when he went to check on her, her bed was empty. She had left a note, and on his finger, he noticed she had painted a small nail design before leaving. Later, Tae Sik rode a bus carrying flowers, listening to music through So Mi's MP3 player. His destination was his late wife's memorial room. Standing before her photograph, he drifted into a painful flashback. When he returned, he spotted So-mi being struck by a woman who accused her of attacking her son. Soon, the police became involved, questioning So-mi about allegedly stealing a bag. She lied, claiming she had only borrowed it to compare it with her own. The boy struck her with his bag, taunting her for not even owning one. The police pressed her about her parents, and So-mi stayed silent until she saw Tae-sik nearby. Desperate, she pointed to him, telling the officers he was her father. The police began approaching him, but Tae-sik turned away and left, abandoning her to face the situation alone. Meanwhile, Man-seok called his brother. His brother mocked him for being beaten by the boss while boasting about his own success. Angry, Man-seok shot back that he was working alone while his brother enjoyed himself. He then revealed that the woman who had stolen the drugs was known to them. It was the dancer. Tae-sik spotted So-mi at a small grocery store, slipping items into her pocket. He asked if she was crazy and why she was stealing, but So-mi bolted without answering. He tried to pay for what she had taken, but the shopkeeper refused. The man explained that So-mi often stole just to get attention. He told Tae-sik that kids learn by making mistakes, and it was nothing to worry about. He even suggested Tae-sik bring her around more often so she could learn properly. Tae-sik left the shop and followed So-mi. He found her crying in an alley. She asked him to return her MP3 player, offering her lucky card in exchange. Before leaving, she asked if she had embarrassed him. Through tears, she explained that she was used to people treating her poorly. Even her mother wanted her gone. Despite the way everyone treated her, So-mi admitted she was disappointed in Tae-sik for pretending not to know her. Still, she said she could never truly hate him, because if she hated the one person she trusted, she would never be able to love anyone. When So-mi returned home, she found her mother tied up and being tortured by Jong Seok, a drug dealer, and the younger brother of Man-seok, frozen with fear. She couldn't move. Another man appeared from behind and held her still. As the torture grew more violent, he covered her eyes so she wouldn't have to watch. At the same time, Tae-sik was ambushed by Jong Seok's men. One of them told him they had something of his and demanded it back. Thinking it was a mugging, Tae-sik handed over his wallet. But when they mocked him, he reacted instantly, disarming one of them and seizing his knife. Soon after, another man named Ram Rowan arrived and handed Tae-sik a phone. On the other end was Jong Seok. Tae-sik asked who he was, saying he didn't have what they wanted, but if they left now, he wouldn't call the police. Jong Seok laughed at this, telling him they weren't leaving without their goods. He demanded the camera Tae-sik had bought from Hyo-jong. Calmly, Tae-sik replied that he could have it back if he paid the full price, plus 4 days' interest. In response, Jong Seok pulled So-mi into the phone call and her terrified screams rang out. Tae-sik immediately recognized both So-mi and Hyo-jong's voices. Realizing they had been kidnapped, he rushed to deliver the bag containing the hidden camera. Inside was the stash of drugs. Ram Rowan confirmed they had received it, but his orders were to kill Tae-sik. He executed Tae-sik's partner instead, then fled, leaving So-mi and her mother still captive. Tae-sik chased after the getaway car. Inside, So-mi looked out at him, crying and begging for him to follow, but he couldn't catch up. The car disappeared into the distance with the hostages inside. In the car, Jong Seok lashed out at his men, furious that Tae-sik was still alive. His men insisted the stranger was unbelievably fast and skilled. Ram Rowan added that Tae-sik hadn't even flinched when he fired a gun at him. Tae-sik reported the incident to the police, but when they asked for his address, he hesitated and decided not to give it. The officers, thinking he was mocking them, told him not to waste their time and hung up. The next day, Tae-sik's phone rang. On the line was Jong Seok, who told him that if he wanted So-mi and Hyo-jong alive, he would need to deliver a shipment to a Chinese dealer named Yoon-ju. Tae-sik agreed to do whatever was required, as long as they were not harmed. A car was arranged for him. Following the instructions, he first found a key inside the glove box, then used it to unlock a locker containing a package. Jong Seok told him where and when to make the drop. Tae-sik asked when the captives would be freed, and Jong Seok simply told him a place where they would meet. Alone in the car, Tae-sik opened the package and found a toy car. Hidden inside it was a small bag of drugs. He waited until Yoon-ju's men came to collect him. At Yoon-ju's house, the dealer welcomed him warmly, mistaking him for someone else and even trying to converse with him in Chinese. He offered tea and attempted to speak with him through a translator. After Tae-sik handed over the package, he demanded the release of the captives. Yoon-ju looked at him with confusion, insisting he knew nothing about any kidnapping or delivery. Before the situation could be clarified, Yoon-ju received a call from Man-seok. It turned out Man-seok had betrayed him by tipping off the police. Sirens surrounded the building. Convinced Tae-sik was the traitor's accomplice, Yoonju ordered his men to kill him. Tae-sik fought back as the men attacked him with golf clubs. With the police closing in, Yoonju ordered his men to throw Tae-sik out to the authorities and fled. Tae-sik was hurled from a window but landed on a safety net. Cutting his way through, he gave chase as Yoonju tried to escape. He leapt onto Yoonju's car, but Yoonju swerved and shook him off. Tae-sik hijacked another car and pursued him, and the chase ended in a crash. Before Tae-sik could get out, Yoonju had already slipped away, escaping just as the police stormed the scene. Returning to his own car, Tae-sik noticed the trunk was ajar. Inside, he found Hyo-jung's corpse, crudely stitched after her organs had been harvested. Horrified, he immediately feared the same fate awaited Seo-mi. At that moment, the police surrounded him, assuming he was the murderer. Tae-sik was arrested and taken into custody. Meanwhile, detectives confirmed through forensics that Hyo-jung's organs had indeed been harvested. Looking deeper into Tae-sik's background, they discovered he was the owner of a small pawn shop. Investigators searched Tae-sik's pawn shop, and what they found only deepened their suspicions: the corpses of Jong Seok's men hidden inside. Meanwhile, Tae-sik was being interrogated, but he refused to answer any questions. One of the detectives described the gruesome way Hyo-jung had died, warning him that the drugs were no longer their priority. If he continued to stay silent, they said, he would face serious consequences. Soon after, food was brought in for Tae-sik and Yoonju's translator, who had also been arrested. Tae-sik casually told an officer that he was left-handed. When the officer leaned in to untie him, the lights suddenly went out. When power was restored, the officer was lying unconscious on the ground, and Tae-sik had vanished. Elsewhere, Jong Seok's men delivered Seo-mi to an elderly woman who used children as drug couriers. Terrified, Seo-mi froze as the woman lit a cigarette and asked if she wanted to see her mother. Later, Seo-mi was led to a house. The old woman told her that her mother was upstairs and urged her to follow if she wanted to see her. But instead, the woman shoved her into a room and locked the door. When Seo-mi turned around, she saw several other children inside. They looked frail, pale, and sickly. Overwhelmed with fear, she sank to the floor and began to cry. Back at the station, Tae-sik retrieved his phone from a pile of trash after his escape. Meanwhile, the detectives reviewed the surveillance footage. Everything had happened so fast, they were stunned that one man had managed to take down several opponents on his own. As they looked deeper, they found something troubling. Tae-sik's file was locked by the military. Even though he was only an ordinary citizen, there seemed to be no clear reason for such secrecy, and this made their suspicions grow even stronger. To push for answers, they decided to send an email to the White House, demanding that the NIS release the information it held on Tae-sik. Jong Seok was questioning one of Yoonju's men. The man insisted he knew nothing about Tae-sik, but Jong Seok threatened to kill him if he did not cooperate. Before the interrogation could go further, Man-seok killed the man, telling his brother that he was only wasting his time. Yoonju begged for his life, but one of Jong Seok's men killed him as well. Later, the police discovered that Tae-sik had once been a covert agent for South Korean military intelligence. He specialized in handling foreign military operations, but after his wife was murdered by an assassin, he disappeared from service without a trace. Determined to find Seo-mi, Tae-sik went searching for the cell phone Jong Seok had forced him to carry, the same one he had thrown away earlier in an alley. He traced it to a phone shop, but the seller's men tried to ambush him. Tae-sik fought them off with ease, leaving the seller no choice but to hand him a business card. The card pointed to the real buyer, someone involved in organ trafficking. The address on the card led Tae-sik to a nightclub where Jong Seok was partying with several girls. Inside, Tae-sik cornered a man named Do-yi, whose name was printed on the card. After roughing him up, Tae-sik demanded to know where Seo-mi was. Do-yi revealed that Man-seok and Jong Seok were handling the matter themselves. Just as Tae-sik was about to drag him out, Ram-rowan burst in with a gun and opened fire. Tae-sik used Do-yi as a shield, and the man was killed instantly. To survive, Tae-sik hid inside a bathroom stall while Ram-rowan fired bullets into every cubicle one by one. When the shooting finally stopped, Tae-sik ambushed him from behind and then slipped away, disappearing into the crowd on the dance floor. In the chaos, Tae-sik saw Man-seok arrive with Ram-rowan. He called out to Ram-rowan, but before leaving, Man-seok tossed Tae-sik another phone and then escaped in a car with Ram-rowan. As the police began closing in on the scene, Tae-sik quickly hijacked a nearby vehicle and gave chase, racing after them while also trying to avoid being caught by the authorities. During the pursuit, Man-seok called to mock him, threatening that Seo-mi's organs would soon be sold. Tae-sik responded coldly, warning him that he would regret making her a target. He made it clear that he had nothing left to lose and was only living for the present moment. Wounded from the earlier fight, Tae-sik later managed to reach a friend's house. There, his friend carefully removed a bullet that had been lodged in his stomach. As he was being treated, painful memories returned. He remembered how his pregnant wife had died when a truck rammed into their car and how the assassin had stepped out of that truck to finish him off with gunfire. Although agents arrived in time to eliminate the assassin, the damage was already done. Tae-sik was left devastated by the loss of his family. After regaining his focus, Tae-sik's friend asked him to explain what had happened. Instead of answering, Tae-sik requested a weapon. His friend urged him to rest instead, warning that whatever he was planning could only put his life in danger. He reminded Tae-sik that the accident earlier would have killed him, if not for sheer luck. Tae-sik simply replied that he was searching for someone. Meanwhile, the police uncovered CCTV footage related to So-mi. Preparing himself for the next step, Tae-sik cut his hair to change his appearance and got ready to face them. Not long after, Tae-sik received news from the police that So-mi was still alive. The CCTV footage showed her withdrawing money from an ATM. In exchange for that information, however, the officers pressed him to explain his involvement with the drug ring. With little choice, Tae-sik revealed everything he knew, including how Hyo-jung's body had ended up in his car. With this new lead, Tae-sik returned to the same place where he had first collected the drug shipment. Meanwhile, So-mi was being held in a locked room. Ram-rowan tried to ease her fear by offering her a small cake. When she noticed the wound on his forehead, she gently bandaged it with care. That small act of kindness touched him, stirring feelings of sympathy he had not expected. At the same time, the police caught a man who was transporting drugs by pretending to be handicapped. They beat him in an attempt to force information out of him. When they showed him a photo of So-mi and asked about her, he revealed that the gang was using her to move drugs. He explained that children were often used as drug couriers because the police were less likely to suspect them. Elsewhere, Tae-sik witnessed children being used to deliver drugs. To his shock, he spotted So-mi among them, carrying pairs of shoes stuffed with ATM cards. He tried to follow one of the children to the drop-off point, but the police suddenly intervened, mistaking him for a criminal. Forced to defend himself, Tae-sik fought them off and escaped by leaping from a building. Stealing a taxi, he tracked a suspicious van to a drug factory where children were being forced into labor. Inside, he saw the harsh reality: young children collapsing from exhaustion as they were made to work. Slipping in unnoticed, Tae-sik came across the corpses of several innocent children, a sight that filled him with rage. In a back room, he discovered a man hiding and without hesitation shot him. Moving deeper inside, Tae-sik finally confronted Jong Seok. Tae-sik reached Man Seok and demanded So-mi's return in exchange for Jong Seok. When he refused, Tae-sik left Jong Seok trapped as the building exploded, ensuring his end. Meanwhile, under Man Seok's orders, So-mi was taken to a surgeon. The doctor explained that she was going to be operated on for her organs, the same cruel fate that had already taken her mother's life. So-mi, still unaware that her mother was dead, kept asking where she was. The doctor coldly told her that her mother was in his hands, since he had removed her organs himself. This disturbed Ram-rowan, making him uneasy and almost protective towards So-mi. Feeling betrayed, So-mi turned to Ram-rowan in tears, accusing him of lying to her. She refused to believe the truth about her mother and wept, unable to accept what was happening. At the same time, detectives discovered the location where the other children were being kept. They raided the place and brought the children to safety. Tae-sik finally tracked down the building where So-mi was held. When he stormed inside and demanded to know where she was, Man-seok rolled 2 severed eyeballs toward his feet. Believing they belonged to So-mi, Tae-sik collapsed in grief. Overcome with rage, he massacred everyone in the room. He then fought Ram-rowan in a brutal battle, ultimately stabbing him to death with his own knife. Man-seok tried to escape, speeding away in his car, but Tae-sik shot out the tires and chased him down. Laughing, Man-seok believed his bulletproof windshield would protect him, but Tae-sik unloaded every round into it, shattering the glass. With his last bullet, he delivered the fatal shot, killing Man-seok. Broken and convinced that So-mi was gone forever, Tae-sik prepared to take his own life. With the gun in his hand and his heart heavy with grief, he was moments away from pulling the trigger when he suddenly heard a small voice call out to him. It was So-mi. She was alive. Overcome with relief, he dropped the gun and embraced her tightly. So-mi clung to him and cried in his arms, realizing he had come all this way to save her. Not long after, the police arrived and placed Tae-sik under arrest. The truth came out that the severed eyeballs he had seen earlier were not So-mi's, but belonged to the surgeon who had been killed by Ram Rowan. The weight that had crushed him began to ease, though he still knew his future was uncertain. During the ride to the station, Tae-sik asked the officers to stop at a small grocery store near his home. Quietly, he went inside and bought a simple school bag, along with a few supplies. When he returned, he handed them to So-mi. It was a small gesture, but it meant giving her something normal and comforting after everything she had endured. Before they were separated, Tae-sik spoke to her one last time. He apologized for leaving her alone when the police had questioned her earlier, admitting it had weighed heavily on him. With sadness, but also gentleness, he encouraged her to stay strong and to keep living her life, even if he could no longer be beside her. The two of them embraced again, holding on as long as they could. Both had tears in their eyes, knowing that this moment together was precious and the last before they were forced apart.